morning. Our first team that we're very excited for is DTU Denmark, the Hyphae Hackers. Woo! As always, we'll have a presentation, then time for judges' questions, and then if we have additional time, we'll hand it over to you. And so without further ado, thank you very much, and best of luck.
So, we're the Hyphae Hackers, and we've been looking into going to Mars. So there are several reasons for going to Mars. First, there are resources that are very scarce here on Earth. For example, rare metals. But in space, that need not be the same. So, there's also research. Going to space pushes the boundaries of what we need to do. Those pushed boundaries can also be applied here on Earth for technological advances. Furthermore, several companies are also looking for commercial gain to go to space. NASA is also planning a mission in 2030. And last, but definitely not least, several mass extinctions have already happened here on Earth. So the big question is, when is the next one? And are we as a species prepared? So where does our project fit into the picture? We have looked into that if you want to ship a normal model home into space, it's going to cost several $100 billion. That's a lot of money, but that's because you need to ship a lot of weight into space. So we propose using fungal mycelium to build the structures. This has the advantage that fungal mycelium can grow in weeks, something you cannot say about trees which you can make planks of. So our project has been looking into what kind of structure can we make. We suggest making a dome structure made out of small triangular-shaped bricks. So we have looked into how can we make these bricks as good as possible. We have looked into which kind of fungus can we use that gives the best bricks. And then furthermore, we have looked into genetic modifications so that we can increase the diversity of the properties of these materials. We had a very close collaboration with Stanford Brown Wrist, which have made a glue. They have tested on our materials that combine these bricks together, so we don't just have a bunch of bricks lying around. Furthermore, it was also their instructor that suggested this idea to us. We have had a collaboration with both KU and Exeter, where we have looked into the historical background for going into space. So now you're on Mars, but how do you get these bricks? Well, we propose having some sort of small tube where you can grow them in, so you can have a small environment that's easy to control. We then furthermore propose to have these small cutouts in the bricks, so they can interlock and make it even easier for the glue to hold them together.
Right, so we're still staying on Earth just to find out what kind of fungus we want to use. And we wanted to find out what kind of fungus we want to use. We went to Novozymes and we talked to them about what they would think. They recommended us 3 genii. First of all, Fusarium, Schizophyllum, and Aspergillus. We ended up integrating this into our project by using Aspergillus oryzae and Schizophyllum communum. Furthermore, we also used the oyster mushroom because we had that recommendation from a startup on DTU that's called also Biobuilders. We tried testing the capabilities of growing in bricks for these fungi in different substrates as well. We took these substrates from the nature. Aspergillus oryzae is a koji mold, so we used rice. And for the two other, the Basidium mycota we have, for them we used wood and hay. We didn't get any cohesive bricks for the Basidium mycota, so we ended up using Aspergillus oryzae. First of all, the good thing about this, we had cohesive bricks. And if we look over here, we can see that the first row is a lot of mycelia. This row is a column, where we used rice and we used sawdust. We added sawdust because we had seen in research that sawdust is supposed to add to the texture, so make it more strong, make it stronger. We also have 2 columns here, one here, and the fourth one, that's quite dark. That's because we used coffee grounds as well, because again, the research told us that this would add to the texture. In our case, this didn't happen. They were quite, as you can see, there's not a lot of growth, first of all, and they're quite brittle, quite soft, so they just gave in to any kind of pressure we put on them. Another good thing about the Aspergillus oryzae is that it is non-pathogenic. As I said, it's a koji mold, so there shouldn't be any dangers. We can regard it as safe in using it around humans. We had easy access to the good substrates. Rice is quite easy to get by in Denmark. And another thing is, for the 2 Basidium mycota that we used, we think that we might have used the wrong substrates for these fungi. Maybe we didn't use the right wood, maybe we didn't use the right hay. So we went with the easy one. Furthermore, Aspergilli are generally easier to genetically modify than the other Basidium mycota. And this is basically because Aspergillus, as Aspergillus is, are generally just more researched into genetic modification than the Basidium mycota is. So if we wanted to use one single fungi for all of our project. So Aspergillus was the obvious choice in genetic modifications. Lastly, Aspergillus rice is a brand new casus in iGEM, which also made it very exciting to try and use something all new, not just E. coli like everyone else. Furthermore, in our integrated human practices, we didn't just talk to Novozymes, we also talked to the New York-based company Ecovated. We talked to them about, because they're also doing microtextures or fungal building materials, we talked to them about the baking. So for example, here we have a very nice brick. It's about this size in the height. And that is very nicely built. It can take a lot of pressure. We also have another one that we burned way too much. We baked way too much, so it got burned. And that was quite crisp, so it was easy to break. Furthermore, they also they shared their strain with us, Ganoderma resinaceum, that they use for their own microtextures, and their protoplastation protocols, so we can actually try to protoplast their fungi so we could try and also transform it. We tried this 5 times, but it didn't work, sadly. In the end, they also told us about how they wanted to transform what they wanted to transform. They wanted to add colored proteins, like chrome proteins, to add to say like a hello world, and also to decorate. We ended up using the MLCP, that's a chromoprotein, because of their suggestion.
So now you're planning the mission for Mars, but how long do you need to plan for growing these mycelium? For that, we have developed 2 growth models based on literature and based on values from literature. So the first one is this. This is a growth model that models the individual Hyphae's growth throughout the substrate. Then we can, from this, calculate a density. We can use this density as the initial state for another model, which looks on a more larger scale. We can then use this to model how the density changes. This is because the density is linked to the strength of the bricks. So if we know how fast the density changes, we can know how long we need to wait for the density to get to a usable level.
So now you're on Mars. You've chosen a fungus you want to work with and modify to make materials out of. But you would really like a diverse range of materials available to you. So you look into synthetic biology. And we've been looking at a couple of different options. We've been looking at amino B due to wanting to have a world protein as suggested by beta. We've been looking at GFA, which is involved in the chitin biosynthesis, looking to increase the content of that in the cell walls, thus leading to increased hardness of the bricks. We've been looking at Malay to increase melanin expression, which would provide UV resistance. And we've been looking at NAT1 as a possible selectable marker. We managed to produce constructs for MISP and for blended one for NAT1, and we did not manage to produce constructs for GFA and for MLA. So I'm going to highlight MLCP and NAT1, obviously. So MLCP is, as mentioned, a chromoprotein, a blue chromoprotein, very commonly used in iGEM. It was overexpressed in E. coli. We made a construct for expression of that in fermented fungi. This is just a confirmation on gel, which are later confirmed by sequencing. When you transform it into Aspergillus, you get some of them, you get this type on the right, which is a very dark greenish transformation compared to the normal yellow native spore color of the Aspergillus rising. Now, these plates are on different mediums. You might say, well, this might just be an artifact of the fact that you're using different media. However, when you compare, say, samples from the same batch of transformers, you will have some of them looking distinctively yellow and white. You will have some of them looking distinctively dark green. So we took samples from some of them. So we have the green and on the top, and we have the white and yellow on the bottom. We took samples from them, and then we purified genomic DNA in order to verify that we had integration of our expression constructs. And when you do that, you can see that we produce bands the right size for the green transformants. We do not produce those for the yellow transformants. And we thought, well, this is very nice, but we would really like to verify this further. So we took independent samples from another wild type we have in our lab. And again, you can see we get bands from the green transformants, and we do not get bands from the wild types. So we basically have integration. It's the genome corresponding to a difference in phenotypic color traits. So this is one of them, and this biopic is obviously added to the registry. Furthermore, we were looking into NAP1 as a selectable marker for Aspergillus cerevisiae, as it has a very nice feature of being incredibly resistant to things, which makes it difficult to work with when you're doing genetic engineering. So the lab we're in works with Aspergillus in different capacities, and they mentioned that NCC might be a possible option. So they gave us a codon-optimized version of the NAP1 gene, which conferred persistence to it, and we decided to transform it and test it out. So first we did transformations, plated them, and then we replicated them at different concentrations. And as you can see in the high concentrations, you get this sort of distinct lack of growth, which might show selectability. So we took scrapings from that, because what's left must be transformants, right? We plated them versus wild types on the same concentration. That is 800 micrograms per milliliter NCC. As you can see, there's a distinct difference in growth rate, showing that this will provide a selectable advantage in this environment. So you now have a selectable marker, which can be used for further engineering. You have the ability to somewhat alter the color, and now you would actually like to think, well, how am I producing and deciding how to produce these bricks?
Yeah, and that is where process factors come into play. And these process factors, they are how do you optimally make the best brick. But before we do that, we need to know which parameters are we actually looking at. And for that, you need to know something about civil engineering. There are several things you can look at, but we consulted our civil engineering department at DCU, and they told us that the most important parameters is the Young's modulus and the yield stress. For those of you who don't know what it is, the Young's modulus is the way you measure the elasticity of a material, and the yield stress is telling you when a material breaks under compression. So, with that in mind, we made a pilot experiment which tested the following factors shown there, and we took those, applied at different levels to our bricks, ran them through a hydraulic press, and gained some results of maximum pressure and Young's modulus. Now, these are not your typical biological data, so we took a sample to showcase what we actually found. So you see the red circle over there, that is where the material starts to deform, so that is the maximum yield stress our brick can take. And the yellow orange-ish line, the slope of that is actually the Young's modulus, so that tells you something about the elasticity of our material. But when we needed to make a ton of samples, so we did something called an optimal design. It's a modeling statistic that basically lets you lower your number of samples in order to get something meaningful still. And we actually got from 216 down to 64, so it saved us quite a lot of time. And what we gained from this data was that the optimal substrates to be used for our bricks was blended rice with sawdust and just purely blended rice. Another thing which we also considered in the process factors is what can our fungi actually grow on Mars? And we tested that at DCU Wizard, where we basically we gave the fungi radiation doses, which is 12 rad per year, which is equivalent to the Martian environment, and we saw that they could actually still grow, which is awesome because we actually chose a fungi that can live on Mars. But we also want to make this into a coherent structure, not just singular bricks. And what we want to make, Lau will tell you a little about.
Yeah, so the question is, what kind of stress does this building need to survive? On Mars, the atmosphere is way less dense than on the top of Mount Everest. This, of course, needs a very small pressure from the outside. So that cannot be breathed by the astronauts. We need an Earth-like pressure on the inside. That pressure leads to a much stronger force pushing outside. The gravity on Mars is also lower than on Earth. So in the end, the pressure from the inside is by far the largest force, and we would like to push out the structure and make it balloon out and then pop. So our material needs to be strong enough that when we go to Mars, we have a structure that keeps itself together.
Yeah, and the question is, can we actually make bricks that can take this pressure? And so we did further testing with our two substrates, which you might remember, blended substrate and blended substrate rice, and we considered an additional factor of the mixing ratio as shown in the table here. We did a replicated design of experiments, and again we did it to save time, so we got down to just 17 trials with 4 replicates, which was awesome. And from this data, we actually made a statistical model, which is a gamma mixed effect model, from which we found the significant factors impacting the strength of our bricks was substrate of choice, incubation time, and baking temperature. And finally, it was shown that the optimal combination of the 3 parameters were the substrate of blended rice, a low incubation time, in our case 1 week was the optimal, and a baking temperature in the higher setting of 100 degrees Celsius gave the optimum. So, can this actually hold a structure? That is the question, and what will answer.
So what we've done is, we know the strength of our bricks. Stanford Brown Rest have tested their glue in our bricks, so we know how much strength we have to hold them together. So we ran a structural simulation to show what we actually need to hold the building together. And that simulation showed that we need 1/3 of a meter of thickness to hold the building together. That will have a structure that weighs in at around 90 kilos. So, what can you do to increase the safety margin and prepare for unexpected events? Well, you can add thickness. But as you can see, the biggest stress is here on the inside. So when you add more layers of thickness, the added thickness gets further and further away, and that means that you get less benefit.
Yeah, so beyond just doing this scientifically, we also consider the fact that we're humans interacting with society, so we can't just go and colonize Mars at will. We have to interact and actually ask, can we do that? So we went out and asked people that at the culture night in Copenhagen, which is a big event where the whole public attends and goes to libraries and scientific things. And as you can see, people thought that generally, yes, we should. You also realize, however, when you ask them, should we use GMO, that a lot of people are not really sure what GMO is, and we would really like to have a qualified discourse about this, being biologists. So we decided, well, what better thing to do than try to educate people on this topic. So we went out to the Science and Board Convention, which is a science convention for young people, talked to people aged 4 to 10, trying to teach them about genetic modifications by analogy to Jurassic Park. And that was nice, and we're going to do that again next year. However, this was also a little bit hard, seeing as they're young. So we also decided to interact with the little older school children. So we also went to schools, talked to the pupils around age 14, trying to educate them on synthetic biology, GMO, and what is biotechnology in general, and they love this, so we're coming back as well. Beyond that, we decided, well, experience is a great teacher, so we're seeking funding together with these high schools in order to start the first Nordic high school team in the iGEM. And also, we hosted the annual library tutorial for the Nordic teams, where we decided where we interact and talk about iGEM, GMO, and synthetic biology. So we basically try to educate at every level of the next generation of people. So now we would just like to round up our project.
So, first of all, we successfully engineered a brand new classes in the iGEM. So I think that's a pretty big thing. But we would also like to just try and go even further. First of all, this is not only usable on Mars, this might also be usable in refugee camps all around the world, or in just a festival, a local festival in Denmark that's called Roskilde Festival. We'll probably also use this. We would also like to engineer the cyanobacteria that we're going to use as the substrate, because if we're going to transport a lot of rice up to Mars, the whole idea of this project would actually just be taken away, because then we just have to transport rice instead of concrete. So we want to engineer the cyanobacteria to actually look like or have the same properties as the rice with the starch, for example. Further engineering inside or in our fungal materials, for example, make the fungal materials less heat conductive, or just have them give them added strength. So Lau's model would actually be changed, kind of. And then in the end, more detailed simulations would also be good, because when we have detailed simulations of what we do in the lab, we would have it will be easier inside the lab as well. In the end, we would like to thank our sponsors and our supervisors, and of course all the collaborations that we have done here.